Hello and thanks for joining us today, everybody. I'm Todd Baginski. You're joining the April 2021 Power Apps Community Call. We do this call every month, in case you haven't joined us before, and we start at the same time at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Our call happens on the third Wednesday of every month, and we have a great time in here. As you can see, we've already got a lot of people in the call here today, and what we do every month is we learn about the latest news and community contributions going on in the land of Power Apps all around the world. We also have people come in who are on the product team with Power Apps. So we have a couple of them here with us today. And Microsoft employees join us and tell us what are they working on with Power Apps? What's the cool new things that are coming? People like Chuck Sterling, my co-host, and April as well today, and Hugo is here today. So we thank them for coming and telling us really the behind-the-scenes scoops on a lot of things to do with Power Apps. And then, as always, we do technical deep dives. And so we invite people from Microsoft, people outside of Microsoft, folks from all over the world, just like we've got again here today, who are working on Power Apps and love Power Apps. And they're coming here to share with you what they've learned about it and how you can use that to make your Power Apps awesome too. How do we actually pull this together every month? Well, that happens with what I like to call our power crew. And so that's me on the right, Todd Baginski. I'm the partner and CTO at Canviz Consulting. I'm a Microsoft Fast Track Recognized Solution Architect for Power Apps and MVP. And I just love Power Apps and love hosting this call with, I like to call him Captain Charles Sterling. Chuck, have you been fishing this week down there in Florida?
Every day, Todd.
Yeah, what was the biggest thing you caught this week?
70-pound tarpon, which is not what I've been targeting. I want 150.
70 pounds, not big enough for Chuck. So as you can see, he likes to do fishing in his spare time when he's not helping all of us in the Power Apps community. The other four folks you see on the slide here, Dana, Andrew, Heather, and Gabriel, they're all behind the scenes every month, editing the video, promoting the video, putting it up on YouTube, making blog posts and things like that to help you find this video and watch it if you didn't watch live. So thanks to all those folks every single month for making this call possible. Another thing that really is something above and beyond who you actually see hosting this call or presenting today are all the people in the chat channel. These folks I like to call our Power Apps community chat channel gurus. And there's, again, people from Microsoft, Power Apps MVPs, Power Apps champions, Power addicts, Power everything. If you've got a question about Power Apps, throw it in the chat channel and you're going to be surprised how quickly you get some great answers and get led in the right direction. We have such a fun community, and these folks, as well as everyone here, is the reason behind that. So thank you all. That brings us to our agenda for today. And so our agenda for today is we're going to start with Hardit, and he's going to tell us about how he's been working on Power Apps inside of Microsoft Teams and how to make sure when you are working on a Power Apps in Teams and you bump out and work in something else in Teams and come back, that your Power App saves your data and how you're working on it and doesn't reset the app and frustrate you. So I know a lot of people are probably going, oh my gosh, that's happened to me before. I can't wait to see how to solve that. So that's what we have up first. Up second, then we have Matthew, April, Hiro, and Geetha. How about that for a quad tag team partnership? They have all pulled together a Power Apps custom function library. And Hugo has also joined in that, I found about since I made this slide. So they're going to tell us all about that custom Power Apps function library and how you can use that function library to jumpstart your Power App projects too. Then we're going to finish with Rory today. And Rory is coming to us from the UK, and he is going to show us how to use Gestalt design principles to make sure that as you build your Power App looks great and it really works great. So it's easy to use and makes sense for your users. So I really can't wait to see that part too. Rory does a whole bunch of teaching with Power Apps and teaches kids how to work with Power Apps as well. So he's really good at teaching and knows his stuff, and I can't wait to see what he's got in store for us, even though I've already seen the slides and know. Then finally, as usual, we'll always finish with our recent Power Apps news and community contributions. What has everybody been doing around the world? What is some cool new things you can go check out to make your Power Apps better? So as you can see, we've got a lot in store, and I'm going to jump right over now to Hardit. Hardit, thank you for coming on today. I imagine that you've been doing a lot of work with Power Apps and Teams lately, and that's how you came up with this topic, huh?
Right. Yeah, it's been something that I've been doing for the last approximately 1 year. Definitely one of my coolest projects. Crazy at the same time, but that perfect balance between craziness and fun is what makes it interesting.
Yeah. Was this topic something that you just got kind of personally annoyed with and decided to solve it? Or was it something that you rolled your app out and then your users came back and went, oh my gosh, I'm bouncing back and forth between other things in Teams and this Power App. Can you fix this and make it easier on me?
So combination of both, right? So initially, way back when this was introduced, you couldn't even pop out the Power Apps maker outside of Teams. That was my biggest pain because when you working inside the studio and get a chat message, you go to the chat and then you come back and then you will have to start all over again. So that was my biggest pain point. And then as people started using a couple of our apps, they started complaining about the same because not all the apps would need this feature. And I'll talk about examples of which ones would need this the most. So it was a combination of both, a couple of makers complaining about it, and then people in general just complaining about the fact that using apps and Teams is cool, awesome, but the fact that when you come back you lose your entire session was a huge pain point.
I've already seen two different folks in the chat say this is a huge pain point for me too. So yeah, nice. Feel free to take over the screen there and show us what you've got. Your Twitter profile pic must have been taken a little bit ago.
Yeah, that was way back when I did not have the COVID weight gain and I was just getting married. So I wasn't even married in that pic. So a combination of COVID and marriage results in this. So most of you, I'm sure, if not all of you, know about Dataverse for Teams, but just some background. It brings the capabilities of Power Platform into Teams. You can use Power Apps, Power Automate Flows, Power Virtual Agent Bots right from within Teams. And it's not just about using them, you can even create them from within Teams. So pretty powerful and makes a lot of sense, especially these days when most of us spend a lot of time in Teams, right? So all of us are working from home. We chat a lot, we have meetings in Teams. So given the fact that we spend almost the entire time of our working day in Teams, this just makes it more productive to stay within Teams and still create all the fun stuff that you love creating. I consider Dataverse for Teams, or I like to call it the lighter version of Dataverse. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but some of the capabilities of full Dataverse, like row level security, some of the complex fields like polymorphic lookups, they don't exist in Dataverse for Teams. So it is a lighter version, but I still think it's awesome because it's a relational database. And one thing that I really like about Dataverse for Teams, which is not yet available in Dataverse App Maker, is the fact that you can edit tables using the table editor, almost like Excel. So you open a table, you start entering data, and it gets saved. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's why it's when I say it's a lighter version, I'm not diminishing what Dataverse for Teams is. It has a few features that are better than full Dataverse, but then some of the complex features or the rich features that you get with full Dataverse are not available in Dataverse for Teams. It brings with it a set of new controls called Fluent UI controls. They are awesome. The very first time when I looked at those controls, I had a bad reaction, which was, why do these controls have less properties? Power Apps is all about, Canvas apps at least, is all about customization. So why should I give up on a few properties? And then eventually, slowly, as I started using them, I felt that I think that those controls are pretty cool because yes, they come with less properties. For example, I don't think you can add a border to a label, but that's the whole point, right? If you start making a Canvas app, if you don't pay enough attention to UI, your app, even if functional, can look pretty bad. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to create apps that look good without you paying any attention to the UI. Just to give you one quick example, if you add a button, you get a new property which asks if the button is a primary button or not. If you say it's a primary button, it looks like the purple button you see in Teams without you setting any color property for that button. So I think just for that reason, these controls are pretty slick. I am not the best designer by any imagination, but the apps that I create within Teams are actually looking way better than the apps I've created outside of. So I think those controls are pretty cool. If you haven't checked them out, strongly suggest you do. One thing to keep in mind, there are certain properties that have been renamed. I think can't remember them off the top of my head, but properties have been renamed. So that has been throwing off makers a little bit, especially those who have used Dataverse earlier. So do check it out. There is a link on Microsoft Docs, which I can share, that explicitly lists out the properties that have been changed. And then it just provides better integration within Teams. And yes, we have the Teams connector that we can use outside of Dataverse for Teams. But there is a Teams integration object when you create an app within Dataverse for Teams, which gives you a lot of contextual information with regards to where you are in a team. Are you in a meeting? Are you in a channel? And so on and so forth. What is your Teams mode or theme? Is it dark mode or is it high contrast? Is it default? So a lot of cool stuff using the Teams integration object. And if any one of you has used embedded Canvas apps, that is Canvas apps inside of model-driven apps, you would know that there is a model-driven form integration control, which gives you the context of where your Canvas app is or which record it's in. So just like that, there is this contextual integration object for Dataverse for Teams as well. With that said, in the last year or so, I think we've created like 5 out-of-the-box sample apps for Dataverse for Teams. We are in the process of creating 4 or 5 more. I'm going to talk about a couple of them where this particular feature that we will be reviewing today makes a lot of sense. I'm going to use inspection as an example. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to set up areas or assets and then define inspection forms or checklists. And then each checklist can have multiple checklist steps. It comes with 3 apps. So if you install inspection from the Teams App Store, you'll get 3 different apps. One is the Manage Inspections app, where you can set up areas, you can set up checklists. Next is Review Inspection, where you can review the finished inspections. It also gives you some basic analytics information using Power Apps, Canvas app charts. So even if you don't have Power BI, you will get some insights into how the inspections are going. And then the third is the end user app, the inspection app, which you can use to perform an actual inspection. And there are multiple different ways you can record your findings. For each step, you can record if it was okay or no, or if it's not applicable. And then you can also add notes to each step, and then you can capture multiple images for each step, which for an inspection makes a lot of sense. What happens is when you open an app, let's say within a channel, and before that, let me get to one other point. So there are 2 ways now, or 2 places now where you can add an app. Well, 3. One is within a meeting. I'm not going to touch that for now. First way that you can add an app to Teams is within a channel. And then the other way, which was rolled out not too long ago, is broad distribution, where you can actually pin your app to the left nav in Teams. It's just like how you have chat, Teams, calendar, or meetings. You can actually have an app pinned there, so you can easily access it without having to go inside of a channel. And I like broad distribution a lot because just like how you can pop out the Maker Studio now within Teams, you can even pop out a broad distribution app from your left nav. So keeping that one aside, if your app is inside a channel, when you start the session, you start, let's say with inspections, right? So you start recording your findings, then you figure out that you need to go to another channel. Maybe, I don't know, you might want to go to Wiki to get some information, or you get a chat message that you have to reply to. When you come back to the app, you lose all your information. So the session that you were in gets lost. Let's see if this works fine. I have a small recording of the inspection app on my phone. It's an older version, so if you install it now, it'll look slightly different. But I'm going to select an area here. I selected a checklist step, and then I'm going to start recording my findings. So the first is OK. I'm going to add a note. And I'm not going to add a picture because really isn't needed to illustrate the point. But now when I go back into the app, it'll again ask me if I want to perform an inspection. And if I say yes, it will make me go through the entire process again, and the information I added gets lost. Now, in this particular example, it's a couple of steps. Sure, you can do that again, right? But in reality, most inspection forms have 5 or 6 or 10 different steps. And you might have captured images as well. So a lot of information that you can easily lose, which you will have to capture again. So it's a huge pain point. And out of the 5 different apps, so inspection, employee ideas, bulletins, milestones, and issue reporting, this is the most relevant. This is most relevant for inspections and issue reporting, because these are used by front-end workers who are performing inspections or reporting an issue. And that's when you are capturing a lot of information. So you definitely need this feature. If you're creating a project in milestones, even if you lose a little bit of information, it's not that critical. Surely you can go into the app and add it again. But these 2 apps specifically, inspections and issue reporting, will make this very painful. So when we say that we need to retain a session, the first thing that comes to my mind is offline capability. Sure, it's not exactly the same. You are still within network, within range, so you're not losing connectivity, but you are still kind of losing the connection with your app. So because it sounds very familiar to offline capabilities, that's why the approach that you can take to resolve this is the approach you take when making an app offline capable. And the basic steps, right, are you save all your data in collections. Then you save that collection using save data on your as a local file on your device. Then you load those collections using load data during app on start. And then if based on what data you get back, you can redirect the users to the appropriate screen. So with those changes, this is how the same app behaves. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start an inspection. I will select area, start the inspection now, and then record the findings for the first step. So I'm going to mark this OK, add a note, and then save it. And then I'm going to navigate out of this app, go to another tab or another chat, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to go back into the app and see what happens. So as the app loads, it checks if there is data. If there is, I expose another button that says continue last inspection, and it retains all the data that I'd captured. So it says that I had recorded the first step as OK, and I also added a note. If I would have captured images, they would show up here as well. So this makes it pretty useful, right? Users won't have to think twice before navigating to another chat or tab within a team, fearing that they'll lose all the data. So with that said, with offline capabilities, excluding the Windows app for Power Apps, which has a lot of issues and I don't think has been supported in a long time, offline capabilities are supported on mobile devices. They don't work on web. But with Dataverse for Teams, they work on mobile devices and your team's desktop app. It still doesn't work within a browser, which I really hope happens one day, but it brings those capabilities to desktop as well. So with that, I'm going to cover a few tips and best practices. So if you have records, especially ones that have image fields in them, don't store the entire record, right? You can just store the GUID. And when you load the app again, you can find the GUID, do a lookup, and then get the full record. This is important, especially when you are on desktop, because the storage limit is limited to 1 MB. And most of the pictures that we take these days are more than 1 MB or very close to 1 MB. So if you take one picture, you're done. So that makes it very important that you conditionally store images based on the device that you're accessing the app from. If you're on a mobile device, feel free to store everything. But if you are on desktop, you want to make sure you conditionally save data, limiting the number of records you store or limiting the data that you store because of the storage limitations, which is 1 MB on the Teams desktop app. So how would you do that? There is a parameter called host client type. It has 4 different values: web, desktop, iOS, and Android. So web is when you're accessing Teams through a browser, desktop is when you're accessing it through Teams desktop, and iOS and Android are if you're accessing it through an iPhone or an Android device. So what you can do in the app on start is check what the value is for host client type. So I'm setting a very simple variable, checking for the client type. If it is web or desktop, then I'm setting that variable to false. If it is iOS or Android, I'm setting that to true. Now, after that, wherever I'm storing data, storing my collections into local files using save data, I check for that variable. So if I'm on a mobile device, then save my collection of images. If I'm not, ignore the images. So with that one simple parameter, you can conditionally control what data you want to save if the user is on a mobile device versus if the user is accessing Teams through desktop. And I'll get to one of the best practices and tell you why this is important and how I ran into this accidentally. So a couple of best practices here. First one, which applies not just to this particular use case, but whenever you use load data, there is a third optional parameter called ignore non-existent file. I set it to true every single time, because if you don't do that, when a user accesses this app for the very first time, data has not been saved yet on their local devices. So in the app on start, when you do load data, it's not going to find the file, and it throws a very ugly error, which you don't want to show to your end users, especially if they're accessing the app for the first time. So set that to true. If load data doesn't find that file, it'll ignore it. If it does, it'll load the data. Second is the clear data function. I don't think it's listed in the Power Apps formula reference, but it is another function in this group of functions for saving data and loading data. Clear data, at least in my testing a few months ago and until actually even a few weeks ago, doesn't work. It actually doesn't clear data in your local files. And you can do a quick test to check if it works now, right? You can add a button, store a text in a variable, and then add that variable or try to save that variable into a local file using save data. Then clear the data and check when you reload the app, do you still see it? And most likely you will. So what I do is I clear the collection and then use save data. So it's a combination of clear and save data that gives me the same result as clear data would have given. The last one here is an error message that you might see when you use save data. The error message is actually pretty misleading. It says there was a problem saving your data, name could be too long. When I first ran into this issue, I thought my collection names or my local file names are too long. So I actually went through the entire app, renaming my collections, renaming my local files, and I was still running into this issue. That's when I figured out that this error comes up when the amount of data that you're trying to save is more than the limit. So like I was actually storing images even when I was accessing the app through the Teams desktop app, and that's when I was getting this error. So that conditionally storing data when you are on desktop makes a lot of sense because it reduces the probability of you reaching the data limit, and that prevents you from seeing this ugly error message right at the top in your app. That's pretty much it from me today. Hopefully that was helpful, and thanks Chuck and Todd for giving me the opportunity to sharing this with the community.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming and sharing it with everybody. I see a few different folks talking about how helpful they find this in the chat already. There is one question that popped in chat that you didn't answer along the way. I don't know if you even saw it, but it was related to trying this in SharePoint. Have you ever tried this in a SharePoint Power App? I don't. I've never tried save data and load data to do that in the SharePoint form Power App before, so I'm not sure if that is capabilities available there. I think it would be.
So if you're accessing, and again, I haven't used SharePoint a lot, but if you're accessing SharePoint through a browser, I think it won't be supported just because save data, load data are not supported in a browser. That would be my guess. But yeah, it would definitely be fun to test it out and figure if that works.
So you probably, I don't know of any way to open up the Power Apps Player app and then open up the app associated with the SharePoint list. I just can't fathom how that would work. So I guess in that case, it's probably, you're not going to be able to pull it off for that one.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Come on back next time you have something else cool to share. We'd love to have you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Next, Matthew.
Awesome. Yeah, we have got a ton of presenters on this particular topic, not only myself, but the always wonderful April Dunnam, Geetha, Hiro Nagao, and Anton Robbins as well. So today we come to talk to you about the Power Apps Functions Library. But before I do that, Todd, I want to ask you, have you ever heard of the drive principle of programming?
The drive principle? Like D-R-I-V-E?
DRY, drive principle of software development.
What's it stand for?
Oh, stands for don't repeat yourself, right? So anything worth doing is worth doing once, but anything that you've done once, you shouldn't do it again, right? And this manifests itself in several ways in Power Apps, right? The most obvious way is components. So we like to make a component once, and then we have it forever, right? We don't have to do that again. Now, that concept also applies to custom functions. So this was a feature that was quietly released back in April. Didn't get a lot of buzz. It's currently an experimental feature. But we now have the ability to create user-defined custom functions in Power Apps, right? So what does that mean? It means that you're not limited now to just the functions that are available in Power Apps that have been programmed by the team at Microsoft. You can actually go and make those for yourself now. Right, so if in this example here, I wanted to make a function for to allow me to calculate the end of the month for any given day, and that concept exists in Excel and in a couple other languages. And what I was able to do is I was able to create my own custom function in Power Apps where you just pass in the current day, and out comes the last day of the month. So you take a look at that label right there, and you can see that it's doing that. That calculation. So what we started to see was there's a bunch of us on Twitter who are really super excited about this feature. I think Hiro was the first person I bumped into Geetha, bumped into Penn Warner and a few others along the way. And we started talking, we started collaborating, we started to say, like, each of us alone, we're only, one person, and we're going ahead and making all these awesome custom functions. But wouldn't it be great if there's actually a place where we could go and share all these, and the whole community could benefit, and we could scale this whole thing up a lot faster? And that's where April and Hugo came in, because as you know, they work with the PNP project, the Patterns and Practices, I think it's called, project. And I'm going to pass this over to April, and she's going to show you what we've all started to put together.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. So, I heard from Matthew that he was starting out, had this repo here where he was sharing his custom function samples. So I knew right away that I would love to get this under PNP so we can get more people contributing. So that's what we did and what Hugo has graciously worked on and helped us build out here. If you go to aka.ms/power platform-samples, Hugo has built this amazing sample browser for us to find all of these different Power Platform related samples, including the custom functions. So let's kind of walk you through what this experience looks like. Hugo made it so easy to start using. You see that instantly. We have all these different filters we can apply. So right now we're starting off with the custom functions right now, so we can have those samples there, but eventually this is going to be our one-stop shop where you'll have Power Automate samples, Power Apps templates, Power Virtual Agents, everything Power Platform related. We want this to be the place that you go to find those samples and those resources. So we can filter by the type of resource you want to find, whether it's a Power FX sample or Power Apps. Obviously, we have search built in there. We can easily find if you know you want some kind of formula or function for date formatting, like Matthew was just talking about, or regex expressions. We have that in there. You can click those filters and find it that way. And then, of course, click on one of the solutions there to read more about it. So it's really intuitive, simple, and easy to use. And a big shout out and thank you to Hugo for making this possible and building this out for us. Hugo, did you have anything to add there on this since you were able to join us, thankfully?
No, you're doing great. Thank you.
All right, cool. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to Geetha, I believe, talking about how can we contribute to this PNP repo here?
So there are a couple of ways you can contribute. So one is you can add a new sample. So if you have an existing piece of feature or functionality that you think would make a good case for a custom function, or something that you think would be really helpful for the community out there, then this is a place where you can go share a new sample. And another way to also share samples is if in case you see an existing bucket of an overarching use case, for example, like regular expressions, or maybe geolocation utilities, or even financial functions, or any kind of any of the samples that we already have existing. And if you think that you'd like to add something to it, then you could fork that project and extend it and add your custom libraries too. And then there's also a way for you to submit a sample request. So if you have a new idea and you would like for the community to help around it, then you should go ahead and start submitting a sample request, and then the rest of the community or the authors can jump in and see if they can help out by creating a custom function for you. And then there's also an option for you to report a bug if needed. So if you are using or consuming one of the samples and you find that you want to add an update to it, or maybe there's something that's not working as you'd expected, then there's a way for you to report a bug as well. And then Hugo's has actually been generous enough to put together all of these landing screens for us. And they're so detailed and has everything that you need to know on how you can get started. So that aka.ms link over there that actually talks you through how you can contribute has all the links and actually walks you through step by step on what you need to do. And you can always reach out to one of us as well if you have troubles contributing or even consuming from the samples. We'll always be happy to help with that. I think next up is a little video. Hugo, do you want to talk through that?
I can do that. So if you run into issues, you can go to the repository where the sample resides, and you can click on new issues, and you'll see there's different types of issues: bugs, suggestions, questions, sample requests. We also have links to just starting a discussion if you're asking people, hey, how would you do this? Or go to the tech community. But if you have a bug, and this is a bug related to a sample, we're not trying to support the Power Platform, you can just go here, and all the issue templates have information about how to get started. So we'll say things like delete everything above this, or please provide the sample name, delete this, please provide the authors. We ask you to fill the information, because that's all the information we're going to use to be able to help you. And if you don't fill the template, if you don't give us the information about the bug, we're going to be spending the next few days just going back and forth asking you, okay, what sample are you talking about, who wrote it, and so on and so forth. We will automatically close issues where you don't fill the template, because one thing you have to keep in mind is everybody that's helping here is volunteering their time. So please respect everyone's time, and if you want us to be able to help you as fast as possible, just give us the information we need. But we look forward to seeing your samples, your sample requests, and hopefully not too many bugs. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one great way to contribute, just by filing bug requests or feature requests and things like that. But of course, how can you contribute and share a sample is going to be the big question. So the way that we've decided to structure this is we're going to use the Power Apps Canvas Apps source code tooling for that. So if you actually just unpack your Canvas app solution that has the component and the functions that you want to share, unpack that and then submit that in your pull request to our repo, we'll handle the rest. So and the reason why we're doing that, I don't know if you want to elaborate on this, Hugo, but that just really helps to make sure that we can inspect the code so we don't have to go and upload it. We can look at it from a code point of view, make sure everything is kosher and looks good, and we can have a single point of truth that's a trusted source. So that's why we're using that tooling there, and then we'll do the rest. We'll pack it up, back up into a MS app file, so that then you can use that and download that and import that into your environment to use it. If you haven't used the source code tooling yet, I do have a video out there that kind of walks through how to install it, how to use it, that you can check out there. Also, we're going to be probably doing some sharing is caring sessions on this, like how to contribute and use that tooling so that you can submit a sample there. So be on the lookout for that eventually once we get that ready to go there. Hugo, anything to add as far as the code and why our approach there?
I think the idea is, if you look at a lot of the samples out there, they're in discussion groups, they're on some people's websites, and you have no way of knowing whether that code is safe or whether it follows, best practices and recommended patterns. So what we're suggesting here is when you submit your sample, again, we're not going to take your MSF file, we're going to take your source code, we're going to review the source code, and we will pack it. So knowing that when people are consuming the samples, they're using MSF files that are coming from a trusted source, and that's really our goal. We want the sample browser to be the trusted, authoritative source of information for all things Power Platform.
Yep, and speaking of using the samples, which is what you're all probably wanting to know, let's turn it over to Hiro to talk more about that.
Yeah, some app makers may be worried that it will require the knowledge for the GitHub and the source code tool to just using the samples. But don't worry, it's not required. The library also provides the MS-app file, so it is quite a simple step to start with samples. Just download MS-app and open the POPs. So the download link is in each README file, maybe less than 10 clicks to start. Then the Anton will show how to start.
Good. I like it, less than 10 clicks. And so here's a quick one that we're going to show you how to download simply by going to the GitHub. It's going to give you a description of what's going to take place. And then if you scroll down, you will have the download. And from there, you download it, and you have your beautiful MS-app app at the bottom of your screen. You go ahead and open it. And then from there, you're off to the races to try it out and play with it. So it's just that simple. Okay, I can do it, so I know everyone else can. Yep.
Well, yeah, it's just that simple. I guess that's all that we have for you. So definitely go to the aka.ms/power platform-samples to browse what we have now, and looking forward to seeing what you all contribute here.
And I'd love to just take a quick moment to recognize the contributions of a few folks who aren't on this call. There's been a lot of pent-up demand to find a way to contribute to the PowerFX language, and I think this is a really great way to do it. We have Penn Warner out of Great Britain, who's contributed, about somewhere between 10 and 15 functions, helping you to validate things via regex. His work is super awesome. I've also got Korun out of Japan, who has some number conversion tools. And I'd also like to recognize Laura Graham Brown, who's also contributed a function as well. So lots of awesome contributors, and I hope to see you all joining in and helping out with that real soon.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. Hiro, nice to meet you for the first time. That's really cool. And Anton, the always dapper Power Apper. I like the bow tie, man. Thank you. You all, that was great. What a quick tag team presentation. I don't think I've ever seen so many people on the call like that collaborate on one. That was great. Thank you all. Lots of applause, and I'm sure everyone is going to be very happy to get their hands on this one today. Hugo, you're going to see your telemetry spike today, I bet you, and tomorrow. Fantastic. More great news for the Power App community, and the next one we have up today is Rory. So Rory, thank you for joining us today. I saw on Twitter, really looking forward to what you're about to teach us today.
Yeah, I feel like a proud parent of, but it's not my thing at all. But the topic that I'm going to talk about, think is absolutely fascinating, and actually the cool thing about it is we already know it, we just don't know we know it. I don't know if you remember it in Friends, there was Janice, says, you know you love me, you just don't know it yet. But that's what it's like with Gestalt principles.
That's awesome. So we're all going to feel smarter after this call then, aren't we?
I hope so. Yeah, even the dog in the corner is going to feel smarter. Okay, so so today I'm going to talk to you about Gestalt design principles. Now, I've written this, what has turned out to be a very big course on Power Apps, and I was going down the route of all the functions and all the objects and all sorts of different things, whether it's model-driven apps, all these sorts of things. But I've actually brought out a module, and it's to do with design principles, and it's not just Gestalt, it's lots of others, but this Gestalt design principles is really, really cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to run through the idea of what Gestalt principles actually are. So Gestalt principles were actually came out in the 1900s. So there was a group of German, I think it was psychologists, and it's all about how we see the world, how we perceive objects, the importance of objects relative to other objects, and you will, I hope, see that it's actually relevant to how you build your apps and how the people that are using your apps will understand them. Because let's be honest, we live in a world where these apps don't come with instruction manuals. So this is one of the ways in which you can help your users to understand things better. Like what we've got on the screen here, it's a hexagon. They call it the honeycomb. It came out in about 2004. It's about the app value proposition. But the idea is that all these things help, all of the elements that you can see are helping towards this value proposition. And the reason why we know that, even by looking at it, is because of the proximity of those things. So I'm going to introduce some Gestalt principles as we go along. So as I say, the Gestalt principles are all about how humans see the world. So if you can just stop for a moment and consider what we're looking at here, what are we looking at? Most of us, will say it's the Olympic rings and so on, but actually it's not even rings. Remember, what we're actually seeing here is there's not one single ring, not one complete ring here at all. And what the mind has done for us is it's actually bridged those gaps. With the rings, that you can see that they are all related to each other because they've got proximity. And so what we'll see later on as we investigate these Gestalt principles in detail is that we'll see that they can be relevant to our apps. Now, I'm going to be telling you lots of things that are true today, but I'm also going to be telling you one lie, and that's just to keep you on your toes as we go through the presentation. Now, when you do Gestalt principles well, it's invisible. You don't even notice them being done well. And we will see a little bit of that later on. But when it's done badly, you end up with an app which is just really, really busy and where it's hard to see what's actually going on. And the other thing that's true about Gestalt principles and the objects that we put on the screen is that the more objects you put on the screen, the harder it gets to decide between which object is more important than another, or how that object relates to another one. I hope I'm keeping everyone on track here, but let's be honest, power apps, they are just objects on a 2D, on a 2D frame when we make them. So as I say, Gestalt psychology, early 1900s. So now we're actually going to go on to what are the Gestalt principles. Well, the very first one is one that is around proximity. Now, if we look at these dots that we have here, we see that these ones are actually very close to each other. And we can also see that these ones are quite close to each other. And so for that reason, we might think of them as being, a kind of collection of some kind. And we also see that if we see this group here, and we can see another group here, and we also might perceive another group down here as well. But we probably don't see an entire group of all of them. We might not see that. But proximity is a really important point as far as how we arrange things. And what you can see even in this app that we're looking at here is that these objects here, the pieces of text that we can see, they are close to each other. And the reason for that is, well, it's because it's a gallery, but it's also because they have similarities. They have a relationship with each other. And actually, you can probably say that, you can start thinking about proximity. We'll talk about some other points that are relevant to what we're seeing on screen as well. The other point is around common region, and that's I've kind of touched on it already, but what we're looking at here is that they have deliberately put borders around things, and because they put a border around things, we can actually think that no, these four objects here, these are actually related to each other, and we think that because of the border that was put on there. So it's really important to think about that. That is an opportunity for you to make things seem like they're associated with each other if they in fact are. So that's common region. We have another principle which is around closure, which I think is absolutely fascinating. So many people in the audience will see they will see the panda to do with the World Wildlife Fund, and they'll also see a triangle that is sitting in the middle of here. But in fact, as you can see, there is no triangle. It's just something that is a construct from the objects that we can see, and it is a bit obtuse, but at the same time, when we think about icons, that is exactly what's happening with icons all the time. You can see that the mind is trying to fill in the gaps and so on, and that's why icons work well. And one thing that's cool about icons and images is images get processed 60,000 times more quickly than text does. So that's a nice one for you there. Similarity is another thing that's important. So we also, because these objects are either similar because of the color or because of the shape, we then start to associate with them with each other. So we might think about this group here as being similar. We also will think about this group as being similar, and we'll think about this group as being similar as well. But remember that the proximity principle will also make us think that these are similar, and it's okay if they really are. But here's your problem: is if they aren't, that's when you've got a problem. So you are sending messages to the people that are using your apps when you place your objects on the screen. So figure ground is another one, doesn't get used that much, but essentially if you place an object in front of another object, people perceive that one as being in front of it and somehow more important. And there's also this element of continuity, which is this idea that the mind will actually just continue the lines that it sees. And we've kind of seen a little bit of that already. And there's also an element of past experience. So if you see a back icon, icons are brilliant examples of past experience because people use them or should use them in the same way. So here's the thing. If it comes to icons, use icons for the purpose for which they were intended. Don't invent your own new way of doing them because your audience probably won't understand them. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to move on to a little demo if I can, but I'm actually, yeah, let me try this. Okay, we're looking at a model-driven app. You can see the design principles that are in operation here. You can see the kind of proximity. You can see these ideas that are taking place already in here. You can even see that these fields are kind of in a bit of a box together. So you can see that there's some kind of relationship. You can even see that there's actually boxes around here. They've actually done the border side of things. So that's kind of cool. I'll just move on another one. Oh. This is where I don't actually know how to move. Okay, F11. We'll move on to this. So and so here's the Microsoft site. What we can see on here is that you can see that there's, okay, you've got the logo, you've got this grouping here, you've got another grouping here as well, and you can see this grouping going on here, but they've actually done quite a clever exercise here. You've got all of these icons that have been used together, and you can see that there's these Gestalt principles are in operation here. And for those of you that have been sort of astute as far as this is concerned, you'll actually see that this is in fact not the Microsoft site. In fact, this is just an app, and it's done to demonstrate that these principles can be brought into an app. So you've got these ideas of grouping, and I've used I can't remember what I've used. I've just used galleries and so on to make it do what I wanted it to do. Whereas this in fact is the real Microsoft site, but it just shows you that you can actually make an app that looks quite similar to what you're seeing here. So I guess this kind of takes me to the end of the presentation. I think what I'd like to do, if I can, is just go back through and just remind ourselves of what we've actually seen. So we've gone, this is about how humans see the world. It's all about the relative importance of objects. I told the lie. Done correctly, it's kind of invisible. It's how we see the world. Lots of objects, it means it gets harder. It came out in the 1900s. You're talking about proximity, common region, put borders on things, closure for your icons. So use icons essentially, and then use the similarity to do with color or shape. That's useful to you. And then maybe figure ground occasionally, maybe a useful concept for you to come up with. So if you want to learn more about this, then you can go to powerplatformlearn.com and you can go through to the course, and you can, you can get on with your learning there. It's actually a free course. There are a ridiculous amount of lessons there. I don't quite know why I did it, but it's there anyway for all of you to consume. So that takes me to the end of Gestalt Principles. I hope you like it.
I like it a lot. I love how you built the site and then tricked us, and it was really a power app, so you drove the point home. I think a lot of people in chat noticed that too. Very nice. So your course on the power apps will not only dive deep into this topic, but several others with power apps, right? Practically everything.
Yeah, honestly, well, there's over 250 lessons. Most of them have got demos in. I'm just going to put it into the chat. It's free. We have group sessions where I kind of pick up a topic of one kind or another. But really, it's there for you to learn, because I'm an accountant by trade. So 5 years ago, I stopped being an accountant and didn't know what I was going to do. I got lucky, and I started doing Power BI and so on, got into the Power Platform. I even met Charles along the way when I was setting up a little group. He was brilliant. And sorry, I've got to slow down. Yeah. So and so none of this is familiar to me. this stuff. And I didn't want people to go through the same learning experience as I went through. I want them to just learn things once if they can, and not be going through YouTube and just watching endless videos and watching and getting drawn into different areas they didn't intend to get into. So that's the idea.
That's awesome. You're a heck of a guy, Rory.
Do my best.
Right on. Very good. Thanks. And come back again. We'd love to see another one of the cool topics that you have sometime. What an awesome job today by everyone. So many different folks, and we fit it all in the amount of time. We have a couple minutes left to wrap up our call now. I've seen lots of questions getting answered in chat today. That's always fun to see too. A lot of high energy there. In our resources slide here, we have everything that we've learned about this week, including Rory's Power Platform Learn Academy down here at the bottom. All kinds of training resources, community samples and videos, and we even saw more from everybody about those great samples today. Recent news in Power App, obviously the custom functions library you saw today, the cool stuff, the Gestalt principles, and then don't forget our Power Apps demo extravaganza is coming up, and so we're going to start accepting nominations next month. So you can start your entries. So find your teams or come up with your idea if you're going to jump in solo. And let's see who becomes our third demo extravaganza winner for the third year in a row here. It should be a lot of fun to see what everyone does entering their Power Apps or their Power Apps components. We're going to have a playoff and a contest, if you will, for both. So you can learn all about that on aka.ms/Power Apps demo extravaganza. Chuck, I noticed you put this slide in here today. Would you like to talk about this one?
If you guys hadn't noticed, we actually have a brand new user group offering. There's been a lot of feedback that we wanted to actually have a close relationship with Microsoft and the user groups. So we've actually went out and built an experience for user group leaders and the user group members themselves to join and find and actually interact with user group members. So think about this in a world where we start getting back to a physical interaction, physical experience. And right now, of course, these are all virtual. I run the Vancouver Power Apps user group. Matter of fact, we have a meeting tomorrow night. Looking forward to it. So you can find my event. We actually have my Building the Quiz app. And you can find all the other user groups near you, even though near you is virtual still. So thank you very much, Todd.
You're welcome, and thank you. You do a great job driving all these things all around the world. Let's take a moment to shout out to our awesome Power Apps community. So I took my usual fun Twitter Power App and figured out everybody who tweeted Power App CC in the last month and how many times they did it. And I put it into the funwordart.com and look at all our Power App rock stars who are tweeting on this hashtag. I saw someone even asking about it in chat this week. So if you're looking to find cool things going on with Power Apps, you can follow this hashtag and see all kinds of great folks from the folks who joined this call. So thanks everybody for spreading the great word and helping each other out. There's a couple other places, in addition to all the other places we already told you about, where you can learn more about Power Apps. It's not hard to get good at Power Apps nowadays, is it? The first is the Power Addicts Hangout, and you can go to wearepoweradicts.com and join the Hangout every single month. It's a call much like this, where different people come on and share what they're working on, and everyone discusses it and learns a lot. There's also the Less Code, More Power video series brought to us by Donna and Sarah. And they have this on Channel 9. You can find this, and it's even shorter versions, more snacky versions of what we do here. Like they'll have one person on for 10 to 15 minutes instead of an hour-long call like we do once a month. Finally, we'd like to say thanks. We have a lot of fun doing this every month. I can't believe how there's just continues to be no shortage of awesome folks doing awesome things with Power Apps and willing to share all that with everybody. We just see it month after month. And so thank you for all the folks in the community. Thanks for joining our call and being a part of it. We will post this call as soon as it's produced on the Microsoft 365 Developer YouTube channel. You can get updates about when that's done if you follow Microsoft 365 Dev. And I would just like to say thanks again to all the presenters today. And as always, Chuck, it's great being here with you today. We will see you all again on May 19th next month at 8 a.m. PST for our next Power Apps community call. Thanks a bunch, everybody.